Bom dia a todos. Vamos dar início a mais uma reunião da disciplina de Neurocirurgia da Escola Paulista de Medicina da Universidade Federal de São Paulo. Hoje transmitindo diretamente dos nossos auditórios no Anfiteatro Leitão da Cunha, desta Escola Paulista, gentilmente cedido pela nossa diretora da escola. E eu gostaria de dar dois informes. Na próxima quarta-feira, dia 1º, começa o nosso curso de substância de substância branca, de secção de fibras brancas. Já está esgotado, fica para o próximo curso, quem não fez a inscrição. E também começa na cidade, em Costa Rica, o Congresso Latino-Americano de Neurocirurgia Pediátrica. E lá ainda tem lugar, vocês estão todos convidados. Hoje o grupo que irá apresentar os temas será o grupo de coluna, e nós vamos ter a satisfação de receber aqui o professor Jean Debussy, ortopedista de Paris, que trabalha muito com a escoliose de criança. Então, gostaria de chamar o Dr. Eduardo Yunes para iniciar essa apresentação. Dr. Eduardo, por favor.
Bom dia a todos, bom dia aos neuronautas. Então, vou apresentar aqui o professor Jean Debussy. Ele é professor emérito da Universidade de Paris René Descartes, membro titular da Academia Nacional de Medicina e da Academia de Cirurgia. Debussy também é membro do Conselho Científico da Fundação Yves Cottrell e do Instituto de France, e membro do Conselho Científico e Laboratório de Biomecânica de Paris. Please, Professor Debussy.
Good morning, everybody. First of all, I want to thank Eduardo, Professor Carvalho, who gave me the honor to speak in front of you. And also, I want to thank Mr. Piclet and Euros Company that allow us to be in Brazil. I will speak about, as you see on the screen, my personal history and surgical treatment of progressive scoliosis in growing child. You know, I am not so young that I look. I am 83, so I start spine surgery in the 60s, just before Harrington instrumentation, and I performed the first surgery inside the cast without any instruments. And it is the reason because my personal history taught me many things, especially with the mistake I did. And the mistake I learned for each mistake, much more than if you look about statistics. One case for me was more important so you know, when you speak about growing spine, the etiology is evidently crucial, and when you have such patients with arthrogryposis of osteogenesis imperfecta, meningocele, infantile scoliosis, you see that the main thing is the relationship between spinal canal, spinal cord, and stability and instability. Then, of course, thorax is a very important factor, and all the associated anomalies, visceral or cardiac or urinary. Early surgery, sometimes very useful, if not mandatory. You see, for example, this patient with lumbosacral hemivertebra, I saw the patient when he was 2 years old, and I did the posterior hemivertebra excision, and I used a wedge cast. No instrument, but in a wedge cast, I was able to realign the spine after the excision, and you see the long-term follow-up, not so bad. So you don't need metal and many things to reach a good result too. And also, I described a long time ago the congenital dislocated spine, congenital anomaly where you see that there is inside the spinal canal a step up and a big risk of instability. And I had a patient where I described the phenomenon that fall from a small chair when she was 9 months old, and she became permanently paraplegic. So when I did the diagnosis of this patient, I did very quickly a front and back fusion, and you see after the result was good. But most of the progressive scoliosis involving significant part of the spine, whatever the etiology, are treated with not operative treatment by cast or brace, without additional respiratory device and nutritional care. But for the patient and the family, this treatment with external trying to correct the spine sometimes work very well, but often fails. It is why we try from a long time to help the treatment with surgery with only one goal: anti-collapsing device, something to prevent the collapsing. And it is a very important thing to have in mind that it is necessary to avoid any extended fusion, because you saw this patient. When this patient born, 2 days old, 1967, you see the deformity, and you see when I see the patient, she was 18 months old in 69. And at that time, I did a convex fusion of the entire thoracic spine. And when she became at the growth spurt, I had to extend the fusion in the lumbar area. But here you see at the end, when she was 15, you see that the size of the thorax was exactly in yellow. The normal size is the arrow, white arrow, and you see the difference that is very clear. Instead of that, the lumbar spine. And you see very well when this patient, she was 80, the vital, 15-year-old, the vital capacity was only 30%. And at age 39, she became pregnant, and the delivery was very hazardous, cesarean, of course, and difficult for the child and the mother. Finally, both survived very well, but the mother is still now daily episode of ventilatory machine. So it is very clear that extensive surgical treatment, especially within the thoracic area, is something that's very dangerous, that can be avoided. So my name is also attached to the so-called crankshaft phenomenon. And you see the case that pushed me to describe this phenomenon. It was an infantile scoliosis, 1 year. You see, she was 5-year-old. I did a posterior fusion, and I continue to follow the patient. But when you look to the progression that you see between 1973 and year 2000, when she was 34-year-old, you see very well the deformity was very extensive. But when you look from the reconstruction from the top, and you understand why I spent a lot of my life to try to put in the mind of the surgeon that scoliosis is an horizontal plane deformity. And when you see from the top in black, you see the fusion, the shape of the fusion at the beginning. And at the end, you see the deformity. And on the schema that is at the bottom of the slide, you see very well that it is like a door, that the continuing of the growth on the front make this like a door. And I have the proof of that because I treat this patient with paralytic scoliosis that was treated by one of my colleagues before with Harrington instrumentation. And you see that the difference between the post-op, when he did the Harrington, when I saw the patient, it was not exactly the same, because the pressure of the growth of the vertebral body on the ribs make a scar, as you can see here. So it is clear that the crankshaft, here, this is the same patient, but you have all the evolution. You understand very well that the progression, 6-year-old, 12-year-old, 34-year-old, when you see from the top the day of the fusion, typical problem within the horizontal plane, and this is very clear. Another proof is this patient. When I treat this patient, it was a congenital paraplegia, 7-year-old. You see the pelvic obliquity, and you see the treatment that I did on the bottom. It was a big pelvic obliquity, as you see, pre-op, then posterior fusion. At that time, Harrington instrumentation and posterior fusion, nothing on the front. And you see that 5 years later, recurrence. And you see very well on the picture of the patient pre-op, posterior fusion, and 5 years, you see the recurrence of the pelvic obliquity. So I had to do anterior osteotomy and to have the final result. And fortunately, I saw this patient 88 years later. And you see very well the patient still walking with 2 crutches and calipers, and he has the urinary voiding by the tube that he has on the right side. And you see the picture of the X-ray. That was still a good fusion with very old instrumentation. But this show me that pediatric orthopedics it's really interesting when you follow the patient until very late adulthood. So the challenge in a growing spine is to make a good arrangement between the growth of the spine and the simultaneous growth of the lung and the thoracic cage. And everybody know all the numbers with the growth of the spine between the newborn and the maturity. And everybody knows also the development of the thoracic cage, not only of the alveolar multiplications that stop at age 5, but also of the volumes that are so big. But the shape of the chest is also very important to know. And at the bottom of the slide, you see very well that in a lordotic spine, you see where the ribs are more and more horizontal. The movement that you see here, when it is a good alignment of the ribs, is much better than it is too much horizontal. And also, I'll describe also, my name is attached also to the spinal penetration index, where if you do a CT scan, you see very well that the pressure of the vertebral body against the bronchi may reach some atelectasia, in some cases permanent or intermittent. And 2 other basic problem for the pediatric orthopedic surgeon, for the lump and rib cage, is the function of the diaphragm. Not only with the intrinsic value of the muscle, but also on the dynamic motion and secondary to the spinal collapse. More the spine collapse, more the diaphragm is a bad situation to work. And now we have a very easy way to check this with MRI evaluation. In the past, it was a digraphy of the X-ray. Now with MRI, it's much easier. And this also, one problem that is not solved. I spoke for the first time of this problem that I call clothing the umbrella syndrome. I spoke of this in '78. Because this patient that you see at the bottom was SMA, 11-year-old, before the surgery. After the surgery of the spine, you see that the spine remained very well stable, but at the same time you see that the ribs becomes more and more verticalized, and it is why like an umbrella that is closing, and this problem is not solved yet mechanically unless you do a permanent positive pressure ventilation, because on these patients no muscles, so we have to find something to prevent this phenomenon, but I don't know any solution of that. Also, my name is also attached with the pelvic vertebra concept. I described this very early in the 72 when I see my polio patient, and when I was looking on the X-ray, I saw that the pelvic obliquity seen only on the projection was not the good answer, and it is why I consider the entire pelvis like one vertebra that is displaced in the space in the 3 dimension, as well as the deformity. So when you have this pelvic obliquity, you have to consider not only the muscle imbalance, but the postural imbalance, that's the growth potential. So this explains why paralytic pelvic obliquity is a great challenge in the growing spine, because with time, the pelvis itself twists, and you have deformity inside the pelvis that cannot be completely corrected only by external maneuver, and from time to time necessary to do pelvic osteotomy for that. All this explains from a long time to treat this pelvic obliquity with bilateral iliosacral screw and long instrumentation, and you see on this myelomeningocele patient with this pelvic obliquity that I treat with the CD instrumentation with iliosacral screw to achieve the best result. So, internal elongation of the growing spine, remember that Harrington invention. I visited Paul Harrington first time in '69 in Houston, and he told me that at the early beginning his invention was done with the goal to prevent the collapsing of the spine without fusion. And this failed, and after he said that it's necessary to do fusion also at the same time. But remember that Harrington instrumentation was his goal in a growing child, preventing the collapsing. Then many people have improved this. John Moe, Ascani, Marchetti, even with CD instrumentation that I described, you see here, we use without fusion at the beginning. The problem of this was a repeated surgery, because with growth we were repeating to try to elongate a little bit more, infection. The other thing was the sudden elongation, increasing the neurological thing, and probably with only one rod, it will not prevent any crankshaft. Now you know that we have more dual growing rods that, well, I will speak about a little bit later. And you see this in observation, personal observation, you see. 5-year-old in '76, at that time, infantile scoliosis. We treat this patient with traction, we see, and first cast, and you see the correction, then Milwaukee brace. And when he was 11-year-old, because of the progression again, I decided to do Harrington instrumentation without fusion. Of course, he broke, and I finally with CD instrumentation to have the final results that you can see here. Numerous attempts were done all over the world. Luque, Trolley, no cast, no brace, repeat surgery. Bob Dixon in Leeds, similar principle. Plenty of many ways. And so I ask for this patient, if I do a simultaneous anterior convex epiphysiodesis with a posterior growing rod without fusion, this perhaps will help. So I did this, And you see here, it was not so bad result after 1 year. But at the end, you see that imbalance occur because I had a bad level for lower instrumentation. one level below would have been better. But you see that the anterior convex epiphysiodesis changed nothing about the horizontal plane. And you see at the end, alignment is not so bad, but you see that the thoracoplasty will be necessary to remove this rib hump. So during that time, Berus Apicarnia developed also a system that is very well expanded all over the world. This probably with techniques of marketing, everything. But you see that the elongation part of the device is not located at the good place because it's located where we want to get a good lordosis. So I think that is one of the disadvantages of the system. My friend Bob Campbell, that is unfortunately died now, developed the Vector, that is a rib spinal distraction. And because I always thought that this mechanism was too bulky, too big for the young children, I tried to use with a baby CD, as you see here, the patient 2-year-old, and after he goes 6 years, it was a not so bad aspect. And you see continuing 11 years, I changed the rod. But you see that this changed nothing about the development of the chest. Still, transversal development of the chest is very poor. And you see that the thoracic crankshaft occur, of course, you have only one rod, and you understand that scoliosis is really an horizontal plane deformity. And you see at the end, in 2000, the final result is not so bad, but it is not so good also, as you can see. So, to avoid this repeated surgery to elongate the rods, and according to our experience for expandable prosthesis for malignant tumor that I developed, it is another aspect of my career. I did spine also, but I introduced limb preservation in conjunction with chemotherapy in my country for limb salvage. So we develop expandable prosthesis for malignant tumor in young children, osteosarcoma, Ewing sarcoma, everything. So at that time, I worked with a very clever engineer, Arnaud Souberan, in 1903. And of course, when I saw that it was working on the tumors, I asked him to develop the same thing for the spine. And you see the principle at the beginning, it was a radio-controlled expandable prosthesis. It was a preloaded spring and embedded in plastic tube. And around this plastic tube, it was an electrical wire with induced ether through the skin without opening. When the wire become heated, make the first tube, plastic tube, melt, and the spring that was there was relaxed because of the melting of the plastic, and so on. And you see the expansion of the prosthesis. So in '96, we experiment, and you see me with Arnaud Souberan in the lab, experimenting here on an animal, the early design of the same spine rod expansion through the skin without any surgery. And you see after the first surgery, of course, you put the system in. And you see, for example, 8-year-old SMA progressing despite breathing, as you see on the top. Then the drawing, after traction, you can draw on the film exactly the positioning of the instrument without fusion, of course, and you have attached the upper part, attached the lower part, and you see expansions that we have obtained after 6 lengthening in outpatient clinic without anesthesia, but you have to bring the patient to make the system working with the heating of the tube. And I did 9 cases like that with some advantage, no loss of correction, lengthening obtained, but 5 expansion for each patient. And inconvenient, it was necessary to come to the hospital for the expansion, and the expansion become weak. Of course, it is logical. The expansion power slow down when the preloaded spin is close to the decompression. So we look with Arnaud Soubeyran for a more compact bendable with a system that we experiment on sheep here. It was a system mechanical distractor. You see, we were clicking under the skin, click, click, it was expanding. This worked, but it was too self-lengthening. It was not easy to do the lengthening properly. So we abandoned this. And Arnaud went with the magnets before Apcarnia and all the other. And you see here that with the magnet, you see in his hand, the magnet when he rotates the magnet 100 degrees, you see the click that was on one side and on the other, making the mechanical elongation of the rod. This is a technology. He calls this Phoenix at that time, and you see the system from the engineer for the working system. And you see for expansion for tumors, it was obtained very well. And the system, you see, this click was elongating the system. And you see on this patient, was moving, only turning these big magnets was making the spine elongate. And the size, you see an aspect of the size of the system, always by upper part, lower part, bypass the apex of the deformity. And the advantage was that we can bend the system outside the expansion mechanism, and this happened at the time when I become retired, and it is my pupil Lotfi Miladi that is today working in another hospital to use the system that I will show you at the end, and that take care of this patient, of this type of patient. He did some patient like that. Of course, expansion was completely free. It can be done at home or at the clinic. The only necessity, because of the magnets, was no metal and no pacemaker. The shape of the gross potential is variable, so you can bend the spine, bend the rod as you want. It is outside of the active area. Excellent anticorruption device. And you see one of the cases that did Lotfi, and when the patient was 10-year-old, and after it was a chondrodystrophy. But of course, we didn't know if it was controlling the long-term crankshaft, because you have seen that with a single rod, the crankshaft can always occur here. So this minimally invasive approach that I call bypass technique, we can't call it the one. And my pupil, Dr. Miladi, did 28 cases, but we observed rod failure, of course. We presented this in Miami in 2011 at the Cutting Edge organized by Harry Schoffelberger. And we saw also that from time to time, the biological materials were glued the bolt and not allow sufficient rotation and locked the system. But this observation was really determinant for me and for Lotfi also. It was an infantile scoliosis. Just at the time when I retired, I did the 80-degree curve, a 2-year-old, you see, and you see the view from the top. It was the malignant type of the scoliosis when you see this aspect, and especially the apical rotation. So we did the first cast. I did the cast. At that time, a good distortion that we observed. Then we put in a brace, and the aspect was not so bad. But when she became 9-year-old, we saw progression despite the brace that she was holding. And at that time, we decided to do a Phoenix magnet, and Lotfi did with this Phoenix magnet. And the result was not so bad at the beginning. And after, we had to change because of growth. And Phoenix rod disappeared. You know why? Because the conceptor, Arnaud Souberan, the engineer, died in an air crash injury in September 2012. So what we can do, no more system. So we replace, Lotfi replaced by the system that he call 3 hooks cephalad and 2 screw caudal. And you see here that the patient was treated that way. If you remark very well the 2 X-ray, you see that it changes side at the upper alignment. Why? Because you see the induction of the upper thoracic curve, so it was good to attach on the other side. And you see that after that, no cast, no brace, no fusion, and sufficient strength. And we discussed together final fusion, we will do it or not do it. And we thought that the maintenance of this quasi-straight spine will perhaps prevent from recurrence of the deformity. And why not? Why not? Because we follow the patient, and you see nice aspect even on the transversal plane, and we decide to do no fusion, because we were thinking perhaps the intermittent spine will be stiff, or sufficient stiff, perhaps spontaneous fusion, who knows, we don't know. But Lotfi decided when she was 18 to bilateralize the system, because as I will show you later on, he has observed that in 41% of the cases CDs with the H3S2 system, 41% of fracture of this rod with unique rod. So it was sage, it was a good decision to bilateralize, and now probably this girl will go to a non-fusion technique with spontaneous stiffening or fusion, perhaps without any other surgery. So the decision was, after 8-year-old, we must use always bilateral rod, because you see this very simple technique, distraction, but needs always a preparation with traction, distraction cast, and surgery always done with perioperative traction, because this very little stress for the instrument, especially if you have a pelvic obliquity, you can correct as much as you can before any surgery the orientation of the pelvis, minimal invasive at the upper part, lower part, and precise fitting. But the goal, of course, is to try to have the most vertical fixation in order to be in the stable zone, and of course no cast, no brace, nothing. And you see this patient that was multiple rod breakage, and as told me Lotfi, at each rod breakage I was gaining some correction, and you see that some kind of permanent traction, groove detortion, and alignment with growth. That it was a good example. And this other one, you see, this patient is a patient coming from North Africa that was treated by Lotfi. Big curve, 12-year-old, research zero, as you can see. But it was a good decision to do an anterior apical convex fusion. And you see that despite of that, but I already show you that this not change about the angular hump, but a spectacular change in the size of the patient and the morphology if you compare between 12-year-old and 6-year-old this patient. So this anti-collapsing device is a very important thing. And this technique you can bend harmoniously, and especially on an economical point of view, if you compare with the magnets of Beruz and Carnia, it's a very significant difference for this. And the conclusion you see here on the experience, when it is only one rod, you have 41% of fracture, so 2 rods, much better for that. So this drive to the modern philosophy of the surgical treatment of sclerotic deformity growing child, minimal invasive anti-collapsing surgery without fusion, away from the apex, and try to get the system without repeat surgery. If we can avoid this repeat surgery and anesthesia, it's very good. And giving sufficient growth of spine and lung as well, and stable to avoid any cast or brace, no external support, and able to try, perhaps we have not the final answer for that, but it is clear that if we obtain spontaneous fusion with Stein without additional surgery, it's good. And pure medical device, trying to keep most close to the normal, the biology of the stem. So my personal evolution, I will summarize, you see here, etiology, very important, surgery done always after a failure of cast or brace treatment in the young age, and you see that during this period, it was subcural, Darlington, everything. And from 97, Phoenix rod, that is distraction bypass, first generation with the spring, as I show you, and induced power through the skin. Second generation with magnets, Phoenix rod, and after the magnets, Phoenix rod, then we have a small time with we use the H3S2 from Lotfi, and now we use the system that developed by Euros company called NEMOST or called TANIT if it is in neuromuscular pathology. And we know perhaps final fusion, if necessary, at the end of growth, if we see that it is necessary to do it, or spontaneous fusion will have already been observed and we are expected in host case. But something very important is a way with the technique you use, always a bypass system, bipolar. Some people say bipolar. I don't like the name bipolar because it's something with psychiatry thing. So I call bypass. You can call it as you want. But the instrumentation principle, very strong fixation at the upper part with supralaminar claw, double or 3 level. And bypass transmuscular, nothing at the apex, and very strong fixation in the lower part. And of course, when we have a neuromuscular type, bilateral pelvic fixation is mandatory to it. So you see here the bypass apex principle for neuromuscular patient, upper construct, claw, bilateral claw, because the claw with the hooks is in our hands and the hands of many people stronger, much stronger than the pedicular screw, because the pedicular screw, the pull out is easy for that. With this, we have observed almost never pull out when you have the bilateral fall like that, when you see. And bent transmuscular, the rod is probably the most difficult part of the surgery, to bend properly this rod. And the lower part, of course, iliosacral screw, that is very strong. You have a big advantage because all the traction and the forces occurs in the middle of the screw and not at one side. And you have a very strong fixation. In my life, I've never seen a pull out of iliosacral screw. I have seen unscrewing, but now it is completely resolved. And this click domino that will be probably one day very well developed, because this click domino allow you self-elongation of the spine only by the movement or by the spontaneous growth and the forces that occurs on the instrument by growth. This is, I call, the click domino, and the company call it NEMOST. NEMOST is a system that only one way, you have no return possible, but this don't give the elongation without any anesthesia, only by the movement of pulling on the leg of the patient. And you see, minimal invasive, this is important. Elongation without surgery, with normal growth power or external, I call no return device. It is, the goal is to have this permanent elongation of the spinal structure, self-stretching rod. And you see very well on the X-ray the elongation that was obtained 6 months after that. Some example, here you have double infantile scoliosis curve with the click domino with the time, and you observe the effectiveness of the growth between 9 and 10-year-old. And you see for a neuromuscular case, look at the change of the patient without cast, without brace, without nothing, only the internal fixation given by the instruments. So I am convinced that this goal has been achieved, that technical refinement, thanks to Eros company and the work of my pupil. But why it is, for me, the up-to-date technique? For 3 reasons. First, mechanical, mini invasive, a very strong fixation bone, and as well as the spinal, as well as the pelvic structure. Less invasive auto-elongation today, and probably the minimum of wear and debris that we can observe in any system that you put inside the spine. Where elongation is done, you have always wear, debris, and not a big number of complications, thanks to progressive correction of the deformity, thanks to relaxation of the soft tissue. Biological, of course, respective of the biology, and of course, changing very quickly. We saw the patient just after the surgery, change completely this poor collapsing spine of neuromuscular patient, immediately change after, and you see the weight of the patient increase very quickly. Spontaneous fusion, perhaps we will be observed, and it is something that, and of course, economical This is another mainly reason. But requirement, very requirement. If people have not understood, you have planning this. You have to choose a good implant. You have to prepare the patient. Preoperative traction, very important, especially when you are neuromuscular. Surgery must be meticulous, of course, very meticulous. And the postoperative care, nothing, the most normal life, and that is the important. So, final, I will say, idiopathic, not surgical treatment at first, early, but when failed, if you are below 8-year-old, you use bilateral when you are over 8-year-old, and one self-click domino, one rod if you are below 8 years, but every time you are over two rods. Neuromuscular, always two bipolar and two self-domino with iliosacral screw. And stiffness fusion, perhaps this we cannot give you big data about that, but it's coming. It's coming. New concept. You have understood this with very serious benefit, not only for the patient but also for the family. And my teacher, you see here my teacher that nobody knows of you. It was a great teacher for me, Pierre Conneau. And you see the conclusion is, he told me, seek after, and you will find it. And you can see this in the Evangel of Matthew, chapter 6, 7. And the conclusion is, you have seen, when you learn from your failure, this push you to prepare invention for improve the care of our patients. Thank you very much.
Bom, agora nós ainda temos um pouco de tempo, podemos fazer um pouco de discussão com o professor Jean, e deixo aberto também para os nossos neuronautas, se fizerem algum tipo de pergunta. E now I'd like to invite the team of the spinal surgery in our department to discuss something about Professor Jean. Any question?
I can answer your question. Don't hesitate. If you speak in French, it's the same thing.
Okay, you can speak in Portuguese, espanhol, francês.
If you speak in Portuguese, my friend will translate. No problem.
Professor Duboce, it's a great honor to receive you in our university, mainly in our department. You are part of the history of the spine surgery, of course, not only in spine deformity, but in the spine tumors and other treatments of infantile scoliosis and things like that. Those big issues like that. And you are saying about kind of treatment without fusion, even for the adult patients.
This is.
I would like to hear a little bit more of you about that new concept.
No, this new concept for the adult was used by one of my pupils also, Stéphane Wolf, in Hospital Saint-Joseph in Paris. The goal is that, you know, when you have a big degenerative spine and the general status of the patient is not so good, we think, and with Stéphane Wolf, when you do a big surgery of this patient, is life-threatening because you have some complication, a lot of bleeding. So the concept was, if we can use a system anti-collapsing, just a little bit, with sufficient strength to prevent this collapsing,
it will be perhaps sufficient for some patients, and some of the patients of Stefan Wolf demonstrate that. With some difficulties about the material, that you have not the same forces that are on the screws and the connectors of the system, but the company works to improve and perhaps the number of the rod, perhaps instead of 2 rods, better to put 4 rods, it depends. But the goal is to have minimal invasive surgery with the goal not to correction, but to prevent correction, nothing else. And it is why if the strength of the point of fixation above and below is good, sufficiently good, we not need of fusion screw everywhere that is increasing the blood loss, increasing the complication post-op. You understand? This is a philosophy of this system.
Very nice.
In some cases are not so bad, and every year now with Stefan at the Saint Joseph Hospital, I go, of course, there with them, and we see it may be useful for this type of patient, collapsing this, but perhaps with 2 rods it's better. There is something.
Yeah.
It is, but it will be published widely when you have sufficient follow-up, of course. But it is the idea. You have understood the philosophy.
Yeah, nice.
It is important. In my experience, the big improvement in any kind of surgery must start by philosophy. Oh. Hello. Everybody in surgery has done this. Philosophy drives the technique.
Sure.
This is my opinion.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Any other question? Have you seen some infection in this kind of the situation? Because before you open all the spinal to put the instrumentation, see several infection, remove the instrumentation. In that kind of approach, you decrease the number of infection. What's your rate about the infection?
Of course, yes. With this technique, the rate of infection is less, of course, because it's shorter time of surgery, and the approach is minimally invasive. Lower part, upper part. And this diminishes the rate of infection, of course. This is. We will not say no infection because this will be wrong, but of course, diminish the rate of infection and the rate of post-operative. Yeah.
Yesterday you had a meeting in São Paulo about the São Paulo Society of Neurosurgery. We invited a neurosurgeon, orthopedic neurosurgeon from New York, and he put the vancomycin, powder of vancomycin in the. Have you used some artificial in something like that?
No. In my life, I have never used this, but.
I was very astonished with that, to put the powder inside the surgery. No. You don't use this.
I know that it's very popular, this. But you know, for example, for the neuromuscular, some of the infection came when you have the pelvic fixation that is just under the skin. Here, with the iliosacral screw, it is very deep, covered by muscle. You cannot feel. But other fixation, when you have a fixation on the iliac crest, many people put fixation coming from the spine, go with iliac screw, but they are starting. It is the reverse. Here it's deep, and the screw is in the middle of the muscle buttock. You don't feel anything of this iliac screw. And they were afraid by the orientation. But no, we have sufficient variation, 20 degrees in each plane. The problem is to very well know when you put the idiosacral screw, you have to have in mind, because I put idiosacral screw from when I have no wire or nothing. It's the important thing, when you have the posterior, when you saw it's the entrance point is mandatory. You must know exactly the L5-S1 posterior joint. When you see this, you see the first sacral hole just below. Generally, I never opened this first sacral hole. When I saw the L5-S1 joint, I saw also the orientation of the sacrum. And when you see the orientation of the sacrum, because you may have sacrum like that, like that, like that, you know that the disc space L5-S1, without seeing it, it is always perpendicular. And when you have this in mind, you will not miss very well when you put your wire. So it is, when you know this, you cannot miss. And you are almost always in the middle of the S1 body. It is easy. Now we have so beautiful navigation system, so you cannot miss, of course. But even without that, I never use a navigation system in my life. Even for particular school, you feel very well with your medial nerve.
Professor, could you talk us about the preoperative traction, your parameters?
Peroperative traction is for me, for a neuromuscular. I use peroperative traction for all the cases of spinal fusion, because I was trained for that from the beginning. You know, at the beginning when we did surgery without instruments, we were always using peroperative traction. Even if the patient was inside the cast, because at the beginning he was inside the cast. But the anesthesiologist liked very much the traction, because it is completely free for the tube, nasal tube or tube. They have a good, they like the peroperative traction because the anesthesiologist can approach the work. And the other thing, this is for the upper part. And for the lower part, when you have a pelvic obliquity, you pull more on the side where the iliac crest is like that. If you pull more, you put your patient on the operative table with traction. We have a special table that was designed by Yves Cottrell a long time ago. So you prepare the patient before the surgery. You look at the sagittal. If you want a little bit lordosis, you increase it. And when it looks good, you prepare the surgery. So when with your instrument, you have almost nothing to do. Just a little bit, not too much, because the correction is almost completely done by external system. And you put 1/10 of the body weight, head. If you want, I do also when I was anterior approach of the spine. In the case when I was doing anterior approach, I was always using traction, and on one side. The other side, if you want to take the strut graph from the tibia or the fibula, you can do it. And it is good for stabilization of the patient. And the anesthesiologists were afraid at the beginning, but after they asked us to put the traction.
Professor Debussy, congrats for the great lecture. You showed in your cases, you preferred to use at the upper part of the surgery only hooks instead of pedicle screws. In my mind, I think it's easier to derotate the vertebra using pedicle screws. Can you explain? Yes, to rotate the.
We don't want to derotate. We want to
Only to clamp the upper part.
the goal is not to derotate. The goal is to have a good grip
Yes.
to prevent pull-out. That we have seen with pedicular screw is
Pulling out. Yes.
pulling out. And the other thing that we can see is when you use the pedicular screw, it's necessary to not only see the sagittal view, but the frontal view. Because in many cases I saw on publication, and if you hear my talk on the meeting that in two or 3 days from here, I will demonstrate this very clearly that
I will be there.
people have not understood. If you put your screws in a twisting part of the junctional part of the curve, pull out always, and you have after the PGK. So
Okay.
it's a question of 3 dimension always. No, we have a good grip of and we have not seen complication of this grip.
Okay. And you use the only sublaminar hooks. You don't use the hooks in transverse process. Only sublaminar.
Process? No.
Okay.
Laminar.
Only laminar. Yeah.
Laminar. At the early CD, when you use, it was pedicular screw and transverse to have a claw, but with upper lamina above.
Okay.
Very strong fixation. And when you do that, it's necessary to see Lotfi Miladi doing. At the beginning, we were to put the upper laminar hook. We were cutting with a knife the yellow ligament. But this is a mistake because we cut too much. We cut too much. And when I did in 1971, I did with Rougerie, the neurosurgeon. I did at the first meeting in Paris, European meeting, and with the consequences of post-laminectomy disorder in children. And I did experiments. And when you cut the ligament, the yellow ligament is a very strong part of stability.
Okay.
So instead of cutting to put your hook, you take your hook that is, the blade is very well designed by the manufacturer. So you feel, you have your hook in your hook holder, and this is the lamina, you feel here, slowly, up, and nothing else.
Without
You
cutting
don't see
the
anything.
yellow
You
ligament.
don't see anything, and you don't cut the
yellow
yellow
ligament.
ligament. You do only a hole in the yellow ligament with the head of the hook, the head of the blade of the hook, directly. Only feeling instead of seeing,
Okay.
like I did to my students and residents for tumor when they were removing tumor. I say, your median knife is better than your eye. So when you are doing very close to, you feel very well, especially on the pelvis tumor. When you see anything, you see very well when you are in a very flexible part of it. So use your fingers, yes, not only your eyes.
Okay. Great. Oh, thank you, Professor.
Ok, professeur Jean,
Ouais.
je vous remercie beaucoup pour votre présentation et je voudrais
Je vous remercie beaucoup de parler en français.
et je voudrais aussi savoir qu'est-ce que vous conseillez pour nous qui fait a cirurgia de tumor intramedular, de casque tumor, de éviter la scoliose, la scoliose. Qu'est-ce que c'est votre conseil? Pour qu'on touche la spina, qu'est-ce que vous nous conseillez? Qu'est-ce que vous doit faire? Qu'est-ce que c'est le secret pour non venir la scoliose, pour éviter la scoliose? Parce que ici, vous traitez la scoliose, je suis vraiment très... Pour éviter les scoliose. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire? La semaine dernière, j'ai vu un cas, la personne est beaucoup sauvé un problème de chiari type 1, il ouvrit C1, C2, et après on veut la instabilité, c'est-à-dire vous removez un tumeur et donnez de notre problème pour l'enfant.
Oui. Alors là, je vous parle en français ou en anglais? En anglais, c'est mieux. The question is how to prevent spinal deformity after surgery of intraspinal tumors. If it is an intraspinal tumor not invading the outside of the dura, invading, for example, the foramen or part of the lamina, etc., you have to do Raimondi technique. You do removal of the posterior arch. You do your intraspinal work. You close your intraspinal work and you put back the system suturing. So your posterior arch will fuse. But after that, don't forget to stabilize externally the patient, because I have saw cases where my friend Bernard Georges in Paris or Guillaume Lotte in Lariboisière hospital did, I did that, but you know, after, I say after you remove your posterior arch, you suture them, but you leave them, you have to stabilize, to maintain in a cast or in something. I say, if you broke the tibia, you will make some plaster cast. So, okay. So this is to prevent this. So when each time you can preserve, of course, on one side the facets, it's okay. You will not have a big deformity after. Each time you have to remove both sides, 100% you have deformity. The other thing is when you have a tumor, I have seen, for example, neuroblastoma or tumor invading a little bit the foramen on that side. And in some cases, you have to cut the root. And if you cut the root, at that time, you have always a risk of deformity. Always. If you can preserve the root, yes, it's less risk. But you have from time to time to put 1 root, 2 roots, 3 roots. This is so. If you are in risk of that, don't hesitate to fuse the 1, 2, 3 level you have, whatever age. Fuse it.
Okay.
This will prevent the deformities that you speak about.
Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Jean. You need to finish that for the time.
Okay.
And gostaríamos de invitar nossos neuronautas para na próxima semana, neste mesmo horário, nesse mesmo canal, a mais uma reunião da disciplina de neurocirurgia da Escola Paulista de Medicina. Tenham todos um bom dia e muito obrigado pela audiência. Ok, now